into a swirl of behind-the-scenes tumult entwined with Blake Lively's alleged misrepresentations. Observers say that upon hearing the news, Ryan lost it, plunging the once cheerful actor into a storm of disbelief and frustration. Marvel's decision to terminate such a profitable partnership signaled one of the most unexpected rifts in recent Hollywood memory. The seeds of this extraordinary drama were sown months ago. Though few recognized it at the time, the initial focus was on a new film adaptation directed and co-written by Justin Baldoni, a project that had nothing to do with Marvel or its superhero universe. Blake Lively, cast in a key role, was expected to bring her trademark charm and sophistication. Early glimpses of the set, combined with encouraging remarks from both Justin and Blake, gave no indication of any trouble. It seemed like another polished Hollywood production destined for glowing headlines. As shockwaves reverberated through Hollywood over these revelations, focus turned to Ryan. For the first weeks, no one knew to what extent he was involved. Did Blake invoke his name without his knowledge? Or was he actively supporting her? A handful of leaked texts made it appear that Ryan might have had some awareness, if not direct involvement, in her behind-the-scenes maneuvering. The comedic star, known for quick-witted jokes online, gave no public comment, further stoking curiosity. Meanwhile, the drama became more convoluted when Blake's legal counsel publicly resigned, claiming her narrative of events was inconsistent with the documents they'd reviewed. Industry veterans deemed this move almost unprecedented. Attorneys usually exit quietly with careful neutrality. Marvel, quietly observing from the sidelines, grew anxious. Ryan was integral to their broader cinematic plans. Deadpool, once considered a fringe addition to the superhero library, had become a cultural phenomenon. A film series that brought irreverent humor and R-rated storytelling to a brand typically known for more family-friendly content. To many, Ryan and Deadpool were inseparable. His comedic timing aligned so precisely with the character that it was difficult to imagine anyone else in the role. As the controversy ballooned, Marvel had to confront a question. If Ryan was indeed tied to an episode of public manipulation, would that overshadow the comedic hero fans adored? While speculation about Blake's behind-the-scenes ambitions mounted, she doubled down by filing official complaints against Justin. She referenced alleged discomfort on set, moments when Justin's remarks about her postpartum physique felt hurtful, and lapses in safety protocols for close contact scenes. If proven true, these would reflect poorly on Justin, and might justify her earlier frustrations. But once again, further text logs showed the context was more nuanced. Justin had apparently been mindful of her comfort, referencing his own back problems as part of why he was sensitive to any physical strain. Shock for Ryan arrived when more unfiltered data emerged, indicating Blake had been referencing him not just casually, but consistently, sometimes even directing him to make certain calls or issue veiled warnings. The idea of a comedic star beloved for his friendly persona possibly participating in strategic pressure behind the scenes alarmed Marvel executives. They scrutinized Ryan's contract and initiated an internal review. Did the alleged manipulations tie back to Marvel resources or Deadpool promotional channels? Were there any contractual clauses about professional conduct that might be at risk? The revelation that truly rattled the studio was the rumor that Ryan might have used his star power and professional ties with Marvel to tilt certain entertainment outlets in Blake's favor. The suspicion was that in exchange for exclusive content or early scoops on Deadpool developments, certain media personalities might run stories casting Justin as an overbearing director. None of this was confirmed at the time, but the chatter grew louder, and soon Marvel found itself in crisis management mode. The brand, famed for forging positive relationships with its leading actors, rarely engaged in public spats. That they felt compelled to investigate Ryan's alleged involvement hinted at the seriousness of the situation. This slow, simmering tension exploded when Marvel announced Ryan would be removed from any upcoming Deadpool projects, effective immediately. Fans were astonished. Many assumed that any trouble might be addressed internally, perhaps with a quiet penalty or a renegotiation. But an outright firing? That seemed unthinkable. Overnight, headlines blared, Ryan Reynolds dropped by Marvel, Deadpool franchise in turmoil, and even did Blake's moves doom Ryan's career? For a star recognized as the comedic linchpin of a now iconic role, it was the harshest blow possible. The According to insiders, that was the moment Ryan lost it. Already stressed by the swirling accusations tying him to Blake's controversies, seeing his anchor role yanked away evidently rattled him to the core. People described his reaction as a mix of fury and confusion. He had dedicated years to making Deadpool a success, championing the character when studios doubted an R-rated superhero would sell. Interviews with those closest to him depicted a sense of betrayal that Marvel, a studio he'd staunchly supported, would so abruptly cut him loose based on rumors and partial evidence. For an actor who built his brand on playful self-awareness, the notion of losing a franchise he helped redefine felt like a personal and professional crisis rolled into one. In the immediate aftermath, rumors abounded of an intense meeting where Ryan confronted Marvel decision-makers pleading his case. Some claimed he presented alternative narratives, that any mention of him in Blake's messages had been taken out of context, that he never sanctioned manipulative moves, and that none of Marvel's confidential plans or marketing angles were shared improperly. Yet Marvel, apparently alarmed by the mounting scandal, stood by its decision. There was talk of a possible recasting or a hiatus for Deadpool. Either path spelled catastrophic change for Ryan's association with the merc with a mouth. Emotions ran high among fans, with many venting frustration online. Some placed blame squarely on Blake, seeing her rumored evil plan as responsible for toppling Ryan's fruitful bond with Marvel. Others took Marvel's side, pointing out that the studio had a long history of preserving brand integrity at all costs. If they believed Ryan's involvement in backstage plotting threatened that integrity, they had little choice but to act. A third contingent argued that everything might be overblown, a he-said-she-said scenario spinning out of control, culminating in an unfortunate meltdown that could potentially be reversed if cooler heads prevailed. For Blake, the spotlight turned searingly bright. Once a star admired for blending style, talent, and warmth, she was now labeled by critics as the driving force behind a fiasco that devastated Ryan's Marvel future. The question circulated widely: had she intentionally escalated matters, or merely believed that hinting at Ryan's star status would nudge the production in her favor, without realizing it might lead to full-scale corporate fallout? Even her staunch supporters struggled to reconcile the avalanche of new evidence with her once benign image. She offered minimal public statements, though some insider sources insisted she felt remorseful that events spiraled this far. Justin Baldoni, still knee-deep in finalizing his film, expressed empathy for Ryan's predicament. Despite the harsh allegations leveled by Blake, Justin had maintained a measured approach, releasing comprehensive message logs addressing each of Blake's claims with unredacted evidence. He insisted he never wished professional harm upon her or Ryan. His priority was to protect his film from controversy and to defend his directorial reputation. Yet he recognized that with Marvel's involvement, the stakes had soared beyond anything he'd anticipated. In an interview, he lamented that once the tension spread beyond his film set, the outcome spiraled out of anyone's direct control. Comedic marketing campaigns, beloved for subverting typical ad conventions with humor. Now, sponsors grew skittish. They watched to see whether Ryan could weather the storm, or if the negativity swirling around him and Blake would overshadow any comedic spin he attempted. Even prospective film deals unrelated to Marvel paused, anxious about the potential for more damaging revelations. In the face of these mounting losses, Ryan's frustration reportedly intensified. Rumors suggested he vented that Marvel had acted prematurely, condemning him based on an incomplete picture shaped by sensational leaks. He contended he'd been made into a scapegoat for a fiasco ignited primarily by Blake's behind-the-scenes maneuvering, which he may or may not have even known about in detail. Privately, Ryan confided to confidants that he felt blindsided, a comedic performer undone by forces outside his comedic realm, dethroned from the role he fought so hard to make mainstream. The man who once seemed unstoppable, turning every cameo into a viral moment, now stood in a precarious position, bristling at the company that dropped him. Meanwhile, Marvel faced its own share of blowback. Sure, it had removed Ryan to protect the brand, but fans who adored his Deadpool felt betrayed. Online petitions sprang up, urging Marvel to reinstate Reynolds. or to wait for proof. Some supporters believed the studio had caved to tabloid pressure, or that it was punishing the entire audience by uprooting a beloved character from its cinematic pipeline. Marvel stayed tight-lipped, as it often does in controversies, offering only a terse statement about aligning with brand standards and values. In private, insiders insisted the evidence linking Ryan to the fiasco was strong enough to warrant decisive action. The negative headlines swirling around him threatened more than just one character. It could pollute the entire cinematic ecosystem they'd built over a decade. Amid this tension, watchers speculated whether a settlement or quiet rehiring might surface if Ryan somehow cleared his name. Hollywood has a track record of dramatic reversals. Stars exiled one day re-embrace the next if circumstances shift, but at present, the rift appeared raw. Ryan's personal ties to Blake, plus Marvel's determination to avoid reputational damage, formed a stormy dynamic, unlikely to mend overnight. The comedic star was known for turning controversies into punchlines. What comedic angle could possibly defuse a meltdown of this magnitude? Blake's own professional alliances also hung in the balance. After her lawyer's abrupt departure and the swirl of text messages implying manipulative tactics, studios approached her future projects with caution. Hers was a classic example of how quickly an image could transform from admired star with a near unblemished record to polarizing figure possibly tied to forced leaks and manipulative power plays. The mounting sense of her role in toppling Ryan's Marvel tenure only amplified these doubts. Would fans blame her exclusively for the breakup of a comedic dream team that once seemed unstoppable? As the story reverberated, a quieter thread emerged. Numerous production staff from Justin set finally felt comfortable sharing details that previously seemed too minor to mention. They recounted episodes where Blake insisted on multiple script changes at the last minute and threatened to skip promotional duties if ignored. Others described fleeting visits from Ryan, initially viewed as friendly cameos, that in hindsight may have carried an undercurrent of intimidation, just enough to remind everyone of the star power behind Blake. Whether or not these behaviors directly led to Marvel's decision, they painted an unsettling backdrop. Ryan's meltdown, though never captured on official record, was described by acquaintances as both personal and professional heartbreak. One source said he alternated between quietly sulking and bursting with anger at how quickly everything had unraveled, venting frustration that personal drama had spilled into the professional realm he cherished. Once known for deflecting negativity with a joke, he now found humor inadequate against the realization that Deadpool, the role he poured his heart into, might be over for him. Further complicating the saga, a few media outlets insisted Ryan might attempt to release his own trove of messages, exonerating him from complicity in Blake's alleged manipulations. If so, we could see a fresh wave of revelations, an insider's perspective on how everything turned chaotic. Others posited that if he had such evidence, he would have shared it already, noting that each day of silence fueled Marvel's narrative that he had indeed participated, or at least turned a blind eye to, Blake's behind-the-scenes campaigns. Ironically, some fans pinned hopes on Justin Baldoni, the very person unwittingly ensnared in the fiasco. As a potential voice of fairness, might Justin come forward to clarify that Ryan was never truly the antagonist? So far, however, Justin remained neutral, likely aware that endorsing or absolving Ryan could drag him into yet another cycle of speculation. He seemed content to let the existing trove of messages speak for itself, trusting that truth has its own way of coming to light without additional commentary. The last thing he wanted was to appear as though he was meddling in Marvel's internal affairs. I was testing for a show, that ended up actually getting picked up and doing very well, and I was one of two people, maybe, and then I get a call from my managers and my agent, and they were both on the line, which means it's something serious. Either you got the job or there's something wrong. And they said, so you were the choice, but the network said that your eyebrows would be too distracting. What? Oh no. And then they went like, so what can we do about your eyebrows? Despite the swirl of negativity, pockets of Hollywood expressed compassion for Ryan's plight. A comedic star, overshadowed by his spouse's rumored strategies, is not a typical narrative, and many felt genuine sympathy for a performer who might have been caught off guard. others were less sympathetic, pointing out that Ryan had spent years building a comedic persona that blurred lines between performer and brand, reaping enormous benefits in the process. If that brand harbored a darker side, covert control, or exploitation of insider channels, then perhaps Marvel made the correct call in cutting ties. In the immediate future, the question stands, does Ryan's meltdown mark the final chapter of his tenure as Deadpool? Could he mount a public redemption by disavowing any knowledge of Blake's behind-the-scenes dealings, thus persuading Marvel to consider a second chance? Or did the studio's decisive firing reflect revelations too grave to be undone by damage control? In an industry brimming with dramatic reversals, few dare to predict a definitive outcome. For now, one thing is certain: the comedic icon, once inseparable from his wisecracking anti-hero persona, finds himself abruptly cut loose, grappling with a storm unleashed by controversies that began on a different film set. He reportedly feels betrayed, furious, and above all regretful that he didn't step in earlier, perhaps to rein in the swirl of rumors or clarify Blake's references to him. As the dust settles, fans wait to see whether he'll remain quiet or attempt a spectacular re-emergence with newly revealed evidence. In the interim, Ryan Reynolds loses it after Marvel fires him has become a refrain echoing through countless entertainment outlets, symbolizing how swiftly success can slip through even the strongest comedic grip. Some remain optimistic that a surprise twist might salvage Ryan's relationship with Marvel. After all, the studio has staged notable comebacks and unlikely alliances before, yet others see no route to redemption. Once trust is severed, especially in a brand as carefully curated as the Marvel Universe, it can be next to impossible to repair. And with the public now fully aware of allegations involving strategic manipulations, manipulated text logs, and overshadowing of a once promising director, the chaos may be too great to manage with charm alone. Either way, the saga will linger as a cautionary tale. It highlights how swiftly personal ambitions and star-driven power can spiral into a crisis that not only topples individuals, but also impacts entire franchises. Blake, once revered for her blend of glamour and accessibility, is perceived as a central figure in the downfall of Marvel's greatest comedic star. Ryan, the wisecracking lead who seemed untouchable, finds himself reeling from the abrupt loss of an iconic role, and Marvel, known for forging sturdy bonds with its casts, ended up drawing a line in the sand, proving that even the biggest box office draw can be replaced if the brand's integrity feels threatened. No matter how events unfold from here, fans will never look at the Deadpool saga the same way, nor will they forget that for all of Ryan's comedic genius, a swirl of behind-the-scenes maneuvering was enough to dislodge him from the very role he made legendary. In the end, that abrupt reversal underscores an often overlooked truth in Hollywood. Fame can evaporate in the space of a few decisions, a handful of messages, or a cascade of rumors that, once unleashed, remains stubbornly out of anyone's comedic control.